Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Z. I'm a clinical psychologist specializing in transgender care. Welcome to my channel. Let's answer the question today, whether it's possible to lead a double life. And I'll explain what it is because I will break it down into two domains of a double life. It's possible to live a double life as a way of coping with gender dysphoria, and especially is it possible to do that long term? Lots of people wonder this. I know that for a lot of people who struggle with gender dysphoria, the thought has entered their headspace because when you are struggling with gender dysphoria, and especially when you realize you have gender dysphoria in the midst of already having long-term relationships and children and families, the thought of what can I do? How can I cope? Can I do something on the side without my partner knowing to alleviate the distress, to ease the pain of dysphoria? And how long, how sustainable is it, has crossed most likely some of your minds. That is just very, very common. And it is incredibly common in the very least to start thinking about different avenues of coping with gender dysphoria when you encounter it, and especially when it starts to affect your everyday living and affect your relationships. So what do I mean by double life? In my experience, I see for a lot of people living a double life. In this context, what I mean is having part of your life where you are presenting and navigating that life in your gender assigned at birth, and having some element of your life where you also are presenting and navigating that life, or navigating aspects or moments of your day-to-day in your authentic gender. By two segments of double life. In my experience, it falls into two segments. Segment number one is an intimate aspect of your life. By intimate, I mean for anybody who is in a marriage, long-term relationship, partnership of any kind, whether or not you have children. So in this way, you're partnered with somebody, and that somebody doesn't have any awareness or knowledge of your struggles with gender dysphoria. So we're going to look at this one aspect over here, and we're going to look at, I'm going to share some examples of what I heard people do in terms of trying to live a double life in that scenario and how it has affected them. And then there's also a second scenario too, for individuals when they don't have intimate lives, and then it's going to fall more in domains of careers, in more of domains of their distant families, relationships, not intimate relationships, friendships, those type of relationships, and their social life at large. So those are the two most dominant domains that people tend to go through. In terms of the first domain, for individuals, in my experience, who are, again, married, long-term relationship, partnership, domestic partnership, it doesn't obviously have to be a legal marriage, with a partner for at least some adequate time, where it is an investment in terms of relationship, and it is incredibly common for people to also have kids, sometimes even grandkids on top of that. Sometimes people will try to gravitate to deal with gender dysphoria by living a double life in a way where they will find areas outside of their marriage, outside of a partnership home, outside of their intimate relationship, where they can express their authentic gender, where their partner doesn't have any idea, their children don't have any idea, their grandchildren don't have any idea. So they tend to compartmentalize and keep these two aspects separate. And the way it usually is demonstrated for a lot of individuals is a partner will travel, and then suddenly they'll find themselves in the privacy of their home, allowing them to go ahead and then express themselves. Or perhaps their workspace, the work in private practice or whatnot, they have their own office set up somewhere, and that allows them privacy to express themselves. Traveling on a business trip, where a partner is not there with you to watch you, allows individuals also an opportunity to express yourself in authentic selves. Going on a trip somewhere. So it's usually avenues in that type of regard that present itself that allow an individual to explore, to externalize a sense of self. And a lot of times in my experience, it tends to start very small, maybe very small way of feminizing or masculinizing through clothing. And then it starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. One of the reasons why this aspect of double life gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger is because when a person starts to acknowledge that they have dysphoria, and then they start introducing ways of dealing with gender dysphoria. And in this way, what they introduce them to deal with gender dysphoria is to somehow get in touch with our authentic self, which temporarily alleviates distress, makes person feel peace of mind, makes them feel really good with themselves, makes them feel joy and happiness. A lot of times, one of the things that people really describe is, I feel tranquility. I feel complete peace and tranquility of the mind. That allows temporarily to alleviate the distress until they go back into their life, into the same environment where they have to present in their gender assigned at birth. And the dysphoria starts to get even bigger because you have introduced an avenue of possibility. Before, it was just dysphoria. Now there is dysphoria and there's something that you know makes you better. And once you have the polarity of dysphoria and something that makes you feel better, it is only going to be natural and only going to be normal for your whole self, for your whole psyche to then constantly think about this and gravitate toward this. So for a lot of people who've been living this type of double life for a long time will know this, that your desire to get in touch with authentic self gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and sometimes you push envelope more and more and more and more, because the same things that used to alleviate dysphoria no longer work as coping, and now your inner self demands or wants more. When it comes to this type of leading double life, in the context of intimate relationship where you partnered with somebody and the partner has no clue, no idea, if you are being followers of my channel, this will not surprise you. And if you're new, this may surprise you, but this is, and I'm very transparent on my stance on this. If you know you have gender dysphoria and you know you are trans identified, you know you're transgender, and you're leading a double life to alleviate dysphoria and your partner doesn't know, in my opinion, that's very close equivalent to betrayal, and your partner needs to know. This is my opinion. You can take it or leave it. We all have opinions. It doesn't mean that they're 100% set in stone, right? Because I know for a fact many people who come to work with me have done this for years and years and years, and even continue doing it after I express my opinion to them, because you all adults, you have to decide things for yourself. This is, again, my stance on it. So I think it's really important to let your partner know that you're struggling with dysphoria and this is your way of alleviating and coping with it, and to share where you stand in terms of even thinking or contemplating doing anything about it. And you may not even think about doing anything about it. Having said that, apart from just my personal opinion and a stance of it, I want to share with all of you who may be finding yourself in this double life, I want to share with you psychological hazards, if you will, that may happen by living this double life and how it may affect. I'm sharing this with you because my aim on this channel is to make sure all of you are the best informed. I want all of you as adults to make decisions for yourself. I want to make decisions based on what's best for you, regardless of what my opinions and where they land. But I want you to consider a numerous amount of factors so you can make the best decision. And if you don't know information, you can't make the decision. So what happens when we have an intimate life over here and partners that doesn't know, if that's what you decide, and over here, you are allowing yourself to get in touch with your gender. What happens when you do this long term? Well, one thing that I already said that happens is you're able to alleviate dysphoria, but at the same time, your dysphoria then goes up and then it continues to go up. And suddenly this is not going to be enough. Something drastic is going to have to happen. So why am I bringing this up? Because a lot of people sometimes, I see this, don't consider the fact that long-term coping in this way actually may breed increase in dysphoria. And the reason why I bring it up, because I know that a lot of people start this coping by telling themselves that I don't want to go through surgical and medical transition. I don't want to wreck my marriage or relationship. I don't want to wreck my life. A lot of people associate transition with wreckage, and that's, you know, it is what it is. It's understandable because it's a big transformation in one's life, and you just don't know how it's going to pan out. So some people also think this may not be worth it. I may not be at an age. I don't believe that I will have adequate changes happen to me to be able to pass if passing matters to you. So there could be numerous reasons that people are telling themselves that they don't, surgical and medical is just not in the cards. So as a result, they start telling themselves, because it's not in the cards, I'm going to go ahead and cope this way because there's no harm in it, right? My partner doesn't have to know. So what if I do this on the side? It doesn't harm anybody. It helps me tremendously. I'm able to get peace of mind. And you do that for the time until it stops working, until it breeds more and more dysphoria. And that's when you put yourself in a position of then considering other options that you never thought before. And then it becomes very challenging and difficult because time has passed on. And then people start feeling tremendous amount of regrets, because I have seen people carry this coping for 5, 10, 15, and even 20 years without their partner knowing it. So that's one of the things to think about. Another thing to think about when you're coping in this way while you're in an intimate relationship is that it may potentially, without you even realizing it, pull you more and more away from your partner. And it may even pull your partner more and more away from you. Why? Because when you are keeping something so large, so close to proximity of who you actually are, you're keeping a secret. That secret, every time you're with your partner, especially if you care and love your partner, unconsciously is going to be tagging at you, because your unconscious psyche will know you're keeping something away from them, and it's going to a little bit eat at you depending on your sense of morality and ethics. And everybody has different internal compass. Some people feel really guilty about it, really bad about it, some people less so, some people not at all. So it's really going to depend on your overall psyche and your structure and your personality and a lot of your traits. So it's going to potentially unconsciously pull you away, because you're just going to know you're keeping something away from them. Your partner, on the other hand, I guarantee you, also unconsciously is picking up that something is going on. If anybody ever had a chance to live with somebody that kept a secret from them for a long time, you probably know that you couldn't put a finger on it, but something was off. You may have not known exactly what it is, but your gut feeling, your intuition, your unconscious was picking up on something. The reason why we pick up on those things is because we are energetic human beings. We are energy. We're composed of atoms, right? Energy gives out frequency. If there's an energy of dishonesty and keeping something back, and also not on top of that, feeling tremendous amount of guilt and shame about it, that's going to give out a different set of frequency, and your partner is going to pick up. So they're not going to know what it is. They're not going to think, oh my God, you're probably feminizing or masculinizing on a side. No, none of that. But they are going to feel like something is off. You're behaving, you seem a little off, and they will not know. But what I hear from partners tell me afterwards, and they find out, is that it drove them nuts to the point where they started coming up with their own assumptions why you are the way you are. A lot of times it will manifest in intimacy. You will start acting out, and this is what it does, more withdrawn and less present with your partner. Your partner will start thinking, even unconsciously, why are you so withdrawn? Why are you so absent? What's going on? Oh, maybe you're absent and withdrawn because you no longer love me. Maybe you don't want me. Maybe you don't desire me. Could it be you have somebody on the side? They start thinking all of the things, and before you know it, their assumption become a set belief. So these are some of the hazardous, potential, not so good things that may happen when a person lives a double life, between an intimate life and between a life where on a side you're able to express your authentic true self. Can a person do this long term? Yes. But having said that, I want to be very clear that nobody ever going to have a crystal ball to tell you and to guarantee that you can continue to do it long term. I have seen people who have done it long term for 5, 10 years without any kind of friction, and then suddenly they couldn't do it anymore long term. In other words, nobody will ever have a crystal ball to guarantee you whether it will stop working. It will stop giving you the relief you need. So that's another thing to keep in mind. You're basically taking a risk. You're gambling in this case that this is going to continue to be the way it is. So this is the first aspect, the first domain for a lot of you who are watching, who are in this position, who are also in a relationship. As I said, there's also another domain, and these are individuals who are not in a relationship, or maybe you are in a relationship, but your partner knows, and your partner is like, okay, so if you're coping with it, this is how you're going to cope with it. But most chances are you're probably not in a relationship, and you also not thinking about going through transition right now, because could be numerous things. It could be you don't feel ready, you're not sure if it's really for you yet, you're not sure you want to commit, maybe you think it's not going to be worth it for you, maybe you think you're also, I don't know, maybe you think you're too old for it, maybe there's so many maybes. One of the most common maybes in this group of people is careers. A lot of times in this camp will be individuals who have really good solid careers, and there's this fear that if I go through this, I'm going to risking my career. This may fall into individuals who have a little bit more prominent maybe employment, where they're afraid they may lose clientele or they may lose work or whatnot for the companies that they work with. So as a result, people start living a double life, where at work, most likely this manifests at work, they present as their gender assigned at birth, but then in some elements of their life, maybe they came out to a few of their friends, maybe their partner knows, maybe somebody else knows. They also have an opportunity to split and present their authentic self. So how does this affect, in this case, where it's not your intimate relationship, so there's not going to be, your employees are not going to pick up on the same frequency as your partner, right? Because your partner is there with you 24/7. Well, not exactly 24/7, but your partner at least spends tremendous amount of time sleeping next to you. Maybe you sleep 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hours. That's a lot of time, the two frequencies lying in a bed next to each other. Chances are you also eat breakfast maybe together, or spend some evenings together, weekends together. So you spend more time rubbing up against each other with your energetic frequencies with your partner than you will do over here with your employees. And especially at work, the headspace is going to be at a different, with a different focus. So as a result, people are going to be less likely to pick up on these frequencies. So how does this get affected then? If it's not like people are unconsciously going to pick up on things. It's not really a sense of betrayal, because those people, they're not your intimate partners. They don't have to know. This is your personal life. You can totally keep it to yourself. Can you do this long term? And how does that also affect you? Equally as to this part, one of the things that's going to be absolutely similar is that the more you engage in behaviors that alleviates dysphoria, the more potentially dysphoria is going to go up to. In the beginning, it may feel like the dysphoria is actually going down, but eventually the dysphoria potentially most likely will go up again, because whatever you were doing was not enough. You need to do more and more and more of that. So this is one of the things that is going to be similar to people in this camp. Another thing with living a double life in this camp, and it's also actually applicable to the first camp, and I said it in a number of my videos, is anytime you are doing partial, I would say, I guess one can call it partial transition, right? Because on one hand, you're presenting as your gender assigned at birth. On the other hand, you are externally expressing yourself as your authentic self part-time. So you're part-time kind of in the transition. Anytime you're orbiting between two worlds, the world of your authentic gender assigned at birth and the world of your the world of your non-authentic gender assigned at birth and the world of your authentic gender presentation, the more you're doing split. I use this analogy of doing that acrobatic split with your legs, where one of your legs is getting pulled to one side, another to the other side. Maintaining this split physically and psychologically long-term is very, very challenging, because you're tearing yourself apart between one, or it's almost like living at the crossroads long-term. And that living at the crossroads, living with this leg spreading in each direction, is analogous to living in limbo. Nothing is certain, nothing is static, nothing grounds you. So you'll over the place between the two worlds, this world and this world. And that yo-yoing back and forth is also psychologically exhausting. It is exhausting, it drains you, it will stress you out, it may breed depression, it may suddenly make you feel like your world is falling apart, because when we're not grounded, when we are in limbo, and anybody who ever experienced, we experience in limbo so many times in our lives. When people, for example, this is a classic example, when people buy property, let's say people buy a house, anybody who owns a house, anybody who's watching who bought a house, especially if you bought a house that was not in a good condition and you knew you had to remodel a lot of it, that was a state of living in limbo, because you were living in a place that was not yet restored to the where you wanted to be restored, and it was kind of in shambles, and every day it was affecting your life. And as a result, you were frustrated and tense, and it was difficult and challenging to live in that limbo because you needed your grounding, you needed your surroundings, you needed your bedroom to look like your damn bedroom and not have boxes all over the place. Well, the same analogy applies here. That in limbo state makes you frustrated. And before you know it, you're stressed. And as a result of being stressed, your tension, your tolerance for things goes down. So that means you're more reactive, you're more snappy, you may come across as more moody to other people, as angry, as frustrated. All of this can be a consequence of living your life as pleading. So some things that may start out as coping and trying to think about something you can do for yourself that will alleviate things for you, sadly, eventually will lead to, most likely, often does lead to people frustrated and struggling even more as a result of it. So that's another thing to consider. Living a double life, as I said, long term, is it possible? Anything is possible. The answer is yes. How probable is that? It's going to depend on numerous factors, and nobody's going to have a crystal ball to tell you the chances of that probability. So I just wanted to make this video because I hear in the comment section, and a lot of people email me about this. A lot of clients I work with consider this. People ask me outright, do you think this is okay to do this? It's not a matter of okay or not okay. It's just everything comes with its own pros and cons, right? So in this case, it may temporarily feel like it's soothing you and helping you, and most likely will, but long term, it's not sustainable. And long term, it's also going to slip and ooze into other elements of your life and start affecting your life. Sadly, this is the nature of dysphoria that all of you are dealing with. Dysphoria is a fucking monster. I said it so many times. It is a beast. It's a silent assassin. It sneaks up on you silently without you even realizing it and strikes again and again when you least seem to be aware or even ready for it to strike. And it slowly starts taking effect inside of your headspace, and then it starts taking effect in your life and everywhere else. And it's kind of like one of those things, it just oozes all over the place. And unfortunately, this is what the dysphoria is. For that reason, the things that we all of you employ as coping they're meant to be as a short-term band-aids, but the bleeding is still going to happen. And you need to address the bleeding with something more than just band-aids. Band-aids don't work long-term. So I don't mean to be a bearer of the bad news, but this is the reality. And I want you all to be aware of this so that you can also make the best decisions. And I know that some people also need a little bit of this information-based, objective things about what may happen to perhaps even sometimes get a push in the direction of doing something about their lives, especially if you're ready for it, but you're just letting your fear hold you back. Comment below, let me know if you lived a double life. Did you live a double life in here, over here, both worlds? How did it work out for you? You still living double life? Please don't be afraid to share. Zero judgments on here. Even though, like I said, I have my opinions about the need to come out to your partners, but in the end, it's still my opinion. I will always respect whatever any of you decides to do. Even if you decide to never tell your partner, that is still your decision. There's so many things waiting on your decision that I'm not part of. And I'm going to have to trust your best judgment for yourself. So comment below, share, let me know, especially if you had that limbo period. How did it affect you? Were you able to do it long term? And I'll see you all next time. Bye.